Good morning from California. It's 10 o'clock on a Thursday. And this Thursday, it's time for our SAS New Features webinar. We generally give folks a few minutes to join up live, so we will let a little music play, and then we'll begin in about 2 minutes. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward 2 minutes, and we'll get started then. Hello there. Welcome to today's session. I'm Jonathan Westerling, Manager of Special Programs for the Google SAS team. I'm here to welcome you as one of our SAS customers, whether you're new to Google SAS or early along in your deployment. I hope you're going to learn some useful tips today. Basically, this webinar will welcome you either as a newcomer to Google SAS or as someone who's been using our service so that you can see some of our new features as well as maybe learn a few things about how the SAS works. Let me switch over to the slide deck now, which sometimes takes a little bit of effort on the part of my computer, so I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to let it do the work, and there it goes. Hopefully you can see my slides. So we are going to today take a look at the Google SAS, an overview of its features, some of our new features, and also provide some administrative tools and reminders for you as the person who's running your network, things that you should know about. We'll also have a live demo of some of these new features that I'm going to be running through, and then we'll finish by reminding you about the help resources that we have in place for you, and we'll do a Q&A. If you have questions that come up during the webinar, feel free to post them into the chat. I'm watching those over on another screen. And if it's your first time using Google Chat, on YouTube Chat, you can go ahead and just type into the chat channel, and it will post your questions there for me to see. If it's the first time, though, you're going to get a prompt that says, please create an identity. That identity is just a name that we'll see as you're posting your your chat questions. So just enter some kind of a name in there, and it will show that to, and once you've done that, it'll let you post your questions. So looking at our CBRS product suite, I want to remind you that the SAS is just one of the things that Google provides for CBRS. We also offer the Google Network Planner, which is a way to model radio wave propagation with high accuracy and at high scalability. So you can sort of look at what your signal coverage is going to be before even building the network or using the SAS at all. And that's included free with your Google SAS as a Google SAS customer. The other thing we provide is Cpi training, and CPIs are the individuals who verify the settings for and the configurations for your devices. So this is fairly basic stuff for some of you, but I do want to remind you that Google does offer that CPI training. If you're a new customer watching this, you can check out g.co/shared-spectrum and find out more about becoming a CPI. But today is all about the Spectrum Access System, the SAS. So quick high-level overview of what our Google SAS features are. We offer Google Scale for our SAS, which means unlimited simultaneous requests by your devices. It's powered by the same infrastructure that powers Maps and YouTube and Search, and so we can scale with your business no matter how big you get and successful you are with CBRS. We give you a web-based user interface to view and manage your CBRS network, plus 24/7 phone support now. That's new, 24/7 phone support. Also, that same 24/7 email support and a full set of web documents online that you can check as well. We also have a totally free second SAS that you can use to test things. It's at no cost to you, and you can deploy devices there in test mode and play around, see if troubleshoot things. Totally free second SAS environment. The other thing that we offer is not one but two APIs. The standard SAS CBSD API is the standard one that all CBSDs and DPs, domain proxies, use to talk to a SAS. That's the standard API. We're at release 1. We include release 2 extensions. Google also offers a second API, which is our Sas Portal API. It lets you integrate the SAS with your network software and lets you scale up to a large number of networks and CBSDs. I'm not going to get into that today. If you want more information about that, there's a link there on the screen at developers.google.com. It's a standard Google API, and you can learn more about integrating that into your software at that link. So a couple of other SAS features you should know about. With Google SAS, you always get immediate grant allocation. Always get a day 1 grant with Google. Our billing is per day prorated, so you only pay for the days that your devices are registered. We give you channel guidance in the Spectrum inquiry. Now we're getting into some of the more technical details. And the channel guidance is something that the devices can use to determine automatically what channel to use. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute if that's something that you're not familiar with. I'll show you how that works. We also have lots of features to maximize your CBSD reliability, like grant reservations. And this is a chance for me to plug our YouTube channel. The Google SAS YouTube channel has a bunch of videos like this one where we explain the various features of Google SAS, and one of those is CBSD reliability. And you can go after this video, or right now if you're watching on replay, pause and go check out some of those videos to talk more about those features. I'm not going to go into those in today's webinar. On the SAS Portal side, remember that's our web UI, our web user interface. The SAS Portal gives you tools that'll help you visualize your deployment. It also has troubleshooting information for registration and suspension of your devices, should that happen. So you can troubleshoot that. We show you the grant history for every device and every grant. that you have in your network, so you can easily go and check the grant history. Plus, something similar to what I was talking with over there on the left-hand side, you see channel guidance and spectrum inquiry. We give you channel guidance in the SAS portal as well. And I'm going to show you that as part of the live demo today, how that works, what that looks like, and how you can use that to help you. That live demo will happen probably in about 10 minutes from now, so stick around. Now, before we get into the new features, I want to show you some administrative reminders, because presumably you're watching this as an admin of a Cbrs network. And so there's a couple of things that are important. We recently, well, not so recently, a couple of months ago, added administrative notifications by email. What that means is when your device, if a device is suspended for some reason, we can notify you by email. If you have a change to your access to SAS Portal, we notify folks by email. So email notifications are going to become more and more a part of options that we can present to you in SAS. So it's important that as a administrator of your Cbrs network, you get those administrative emails. We have found that some people sign up for Google SAS using a throwaway Gmail account, or they create a Gmail account just for Google SAS, and that's fine. But what you can do is, to make sure that you get those emails sent to an email address that you actually check regularly, you can add, I want to remind you, you can add your normal email address, your regular email address, to Google SAS. And you do that by creating a Google account with your regular email address that's not Gmail. You can, any email address, you can make it a Google account. And you do it using this little link here that I've highlighted on the screen. It says, if you go to create a Google account, there's a blue link that you may not have noticed. Use my current address instead. And so if you haven't, you can create a Google account using your existing email address, and then add that in via the SAS portal as an administrative user of your network. And what that means is that that email address will now get all of those administrative notifications, which is a good thing, which is why I mention it. Another thing that's conceivably really helpful that's also brand new is the Google SAS team is offering Cbrs deployment acceleration sessions. And helping customers like you in their initial phases of deployment. So if you are still in your early stages of Cbrs and you think you'd benefit from some individual coaching, these deployment acceleration sessions, there are 3 of them. They're one-on-one with our Cbrs consultants. And at the end of that, you'll have a frequency plan for your network. And you'll have the tools and methodologies to make you feel more comfortable managing those CBSDs at scale. We're going to throw an email link to sign up for those administrative sessions in the chat. And we'll also post it in the comments later, so to make sure that you can see that. But that's a new feature, and I welcome you to sign up for those. If you can't see those links on the video replay or whatever, just send us a note to sas-support@google.com and ask to sign up for a deployment acceleration session. Also, I want to remind you that we do offer that 24/7 email and phone support now. And the reminder here for you as administrators is to keep that PIN code handy. We provided a PIN code for you when you signed up for Google SAS. And if you're contacting us by email, you're going to need to have that PIN code in order to for the support team to verify who you are. And we do that to make sure that we're only giving out information about your network to you, to the person who has that PIN code by email. Obviously, if you're getting support via the phone support, you're logged into our SAS portal. I'll show you how the phone support works later. There's more how-tos and tips and information in the Help Center. That's at support.google.com/SAS, support.google.com/SAS. Google's Help Center has a bunch of information about Cbrs there. Invite you to go check that out. Now, one of the things we're doing today is looking at the new features of Google SAS. And in order to understand why those new features are important, we need to take a look at two core important things about Cbrs. So give me 5 minutes to give you an overview both about how devices interface with the SAS, as well as what's called day 1 versus day 2 operation. So I'm going to go over what happens when a device contacts the SAS for the first time. When you first turn on a device, what happens in terms of the communication that's going on. And once I've told you about this, you'll understand more about why these new features that we're showing you today are important. The first thing that happens is the CBSD basically phones home to the SAS with what's called a registration request. And the registration request has the identifying information, what's called the installation parameters of that device. Latitude and longitude, how high it is, how much power it's capable of, all that technical details that are verified, by the way, by your CPI. The person who's CPI certified verifies that information, and the device can then register. The SAS responds to that registration request if everything is okay by saying, hey, all your information looks good, we've got you registered on Google SAS, and it gives it a unique identifier. The next thing that happens is key to one of the features that we're showing you today. It's called the Spectrum Inquiry Request. Now, this is optional. But what happens here is the CBSD calls the SAS and says, of all the Cbrs channels, what power is available on which channel? And that's something that Google SAS provides in real time to the devices, so that the devices, if they're set to do it automatically, will determine what the optimum channel is. So the device asks for a spectrum inquiry, the Google SAS responds with its spectrum inquiry response, indicating what if there is any interference on each channel. And now we've given a way for you to view that spectrum inquiry information yourselves in the SAS portal. And that's what I'm going to show you later on. So remember spectrum inquiry. We're going to get to that later. In this case, the device is doing it automatically. After it gets the spectrum inquiry response, it sends a grant request. I should mention all of this stuff happens automatically with your device. I'm just showing you how this works, what's happening behind the scenes, so that you understand, again, how the features are useful to you. Continuing now, that grant request, a grant is basically a short-term license, allowing the device to transmit, the CBSD to transmit on a certain frequency. So the grant request would look like something, I want to use 3570 to 3590 at a power of 27 dBm per megahertz, some spectrum and power level, some bandwidth and power level. After the SAS gets that grant request, it processes it, gives a grant response back, saying, I've got your grant, here it is. And then what happens next is called heartbeating. And heartbeating is the process whereby the CBSD hooks in, checks in with the SAS. I'm sorry for the construction noise next door if you can hear it. It's part of the pandemic working from home. So again, the heartbeat is the CBSD checking in with the SAS. The first heartbeat is, can I transmit with this grant that you just gave me? The SAS probably responds, yes, go ahead. I've got your heartbeat. You can go ahead and transmit. And then what happens every 4 minutes or less thereafter is that little heartbeat dance back and forth between the CBSD and the SAS. CBSD saying, am I still okay to transmit? The SAS saying, yep, you can transmit. And again, all of this happens automatically between the devices and the SAS. So what can happen, though, is if there is what's called incumbent activity, and you may have heard that the Navy, for example, is a primary user of the Cbrs band. So they have priority. And if for some reason you happen to be, the Navy turns on their transmitter, it doesn't happen very often. It happens more frequently in certain places than others. But if that happens, your heartbeat is suspended. So that's why we have to heartbeat in Cbrs. The other important CBRS concept to talk about before we get into the features is day 1 versus day 2. And again, there's a video on our YouTube channel that explains this in really great detail. And you can go check that out on our YouTube channel. But a high-level overview for you here joining for this video, in certain locations, particularly by the coast because it's the Navy, right? And also near certain government facilities, there's a difference in day 1 versus day 2 operation. And the driver for that is CPAS. So sometimes the SAS may not give you your full grant right away. On day 1, it may limit your transmitting power to ensure that you don't interfere with these incumbent operators. And the reason there's day 1 versus day 2 is because overnight there's something that happens called CPAS. And every night at or around midnight, the SASs all talk to each other and check in with all their devices and do what's called IAP. And I've put the full text in there just to be thorough. But essentially what's happening is the SASs are calculating all the interference for all the grants, i.e. those little licenses, to make sure that there's no interference that happens. And they need to do that overnight every night to get a sort of a complete picture of what the US looks like in terms of CBRS. Once they've done that, they're allowed to give full power, in certain locations. Once CPAS has happened overnight, you get what's called day 2 operation, which means you get more power. Because the SASs have all checked in, they've determined what the interference is, and determined that you're not going to interfere, your device is not going to interfere, that CBSD can go ahead and get its full power grant. So that's day 1 versus day 2. And that is also important for what this means for your devices, depending on where they are. And that's where we get to the new feature part. So I'm going to show you that next. But again, if you want to learn more about this concept of day 1 versus day 2, if you're having issues with your day 1 operation of your devices, sort of the big picture thing is don't deregister the device if you're having a day 1 issue. Let it run through CPAS overnight. Leave it online for an overnight period, and hopefully you'll be able to get day 2 power in certain locations. Where are those locations? Here is where we start to show you some new products. And I appreciate your patience while I went through some of those basic functions to show you what's going on in the background. Now let's show you the new features that let you better power through these core functions. And the first is Dpa Neighborhoods. So in the SAS portal, we're now showing you what the Dpa neighborhoods are. And the Dpa neighborhood shows your day 1 suspension possibility. So again, in order to show you this feature, I needed to show you what day 1 versus day 2 is. Why is that? Because here you're seeing a purple line and a red line by the coast. And the day 1 possible impact means if you have a device within these borders, your day 1 operation might include possible suspension because of incumbent activity. And usually this is resolved after CPAS, right? Because CPAS means the SASs are all communicating, checking the interference, and then they can resolve a lot of these issues. So the difference here, what you're seeing on the screen, the red line, the red area, is for Cat A devices, lower power devices. The purple line is Cat B devices, or higher power outdoor devices. And I should mention that the purple and the purple area also includes the red area. So anytime you deploy a device within these areas, and I'll show you a live demo in just a sec, so you can see the whole US. Anytime you deploy a device in these areas, you're going to be put in a Dpa neighborhood on what's called a move list for the Dpa, for the coastal areas on your day 1. So you could get suspended on day 1. But again, my high-level suggestion to you is let that device stay online, heart beating overnight, and hopefully, because of CPAS, that overnight process, that'll your day 1 restrictions will be lifted. So that's Dpa Neighborhoods. Again, live demo coming up in just a sec. Let's also take a look at the channel guidance, which some people refer to as Coex tab. This is a new feature. If you haven't logged into the SAS portal recently, you'll now see this feature in your login for your devices. And here's what this channel guidance tab shows you. It lets you visualize the available power levels. Remember before we were talking about spectrum inquiry. We now show you a visualization of what's driving that spectrum inquiry information in the SAS. This channel guidance includes information from other SAS devices and even DPA activations. So suspended channels are going to have a lower ranking, a lower score there on the graphs. And essentially your channel ranking is going to be the same as Google SAS's spectrum inquiry queries that the devices would make automatically if they wanted to. So you're seeing visually the spectrum information that's available to the devices in the SAS API. So one reminder is, if you have a new device or a DPA is activated, it's not exactly real time. There is some delay. So you can have, regarding DPAs, there's a 1 hour delay. For for new devices, there's up to 4 hours of delay for the calculations. And for other SASs, the information is overnight if they're new devices in the other SAS, right? Because it has to wait for CPAS. So there is some delay in this Coex information that you're seeing. Some of it's not quite real time, but that's not the point. The point is we're guiding you to the right channel. And so I'll walk you through in the demo how to guide you to the right channel for either a new device or how to troubleshoot and visualize the spectrum for devices that already have grants as well. Now, before we get into the demo, one more thing I want to show you. And that is the parameters that program channel guidance. You can actually have an impact on the channel guidance. So as the operator of your network, you have the option, the choice now, to enter parameters into your network to make sure that devices that can or should be on the same channel are on the same channel. And there's two ways to do that. The first is called a frequency reuse group. A frequency reuse group is a group of CBSDs which can use the same channels. In other words, you don't care if they interfere with each other because they're serving devices on the same channel. You want them to be on the same channel. And an example of this would be mobility deployment on multiple towers, where you're serving devices and you want them to all be using that same channel. In the future, we might call this a PAL deployment, where you're trying to make sure that all the devices are on the same channel. PAL is basically a sophisticated frequency reuse group. But you now, even if you don't have a PAL, can put all your devices on the same channel using that frequency reuse group. The same frequency group is for CBSDs which must use the same channel as other devices. And this, for example, would be a fixed wireless deployment, point-to-point, where you're linking a CPE back to a base station. In that case, obviously, oops, pardon me, hit my microphone. Obviously, the devices need to be on the same frequency to talk to each other. So even if there's some interference, even if there's some issues with the channels, you want to override that with this same frequency group information. And the SFG, that same frequency group, makes sure that that CPE and that base station will link together on the same frequency. So it impacts the channel guidance that we're showing you. So I'm going to show you how that Coex tab, that channel guidance, is normally working, but you can override that in certain cases, because in some cases you don't want to use the cleanest channel, you want to use the specific channel that your other devices are on, and that's how you do that. So, oops, that's interesting, there's a graphic missing in the, in my slides. Gosh, I'm not sure why that's not showing up here, but you're obviously, if you're seeing what I'm seeing on your webinar, you're seeing a blank image on the left, even though here on my little sorter, I see the image there. So there's a bug in slides. I don't know if I have any way of fixing that. So let me just run through what is shown on the channel. This is a graphic that shows the Coex tab. Now, I'm going to do a live demo in just a second, so you'll see this Coex tab. I'm sorry that I can't, this graphic's not showing right now, but what you'll see in the Coex tab, running from top to bottom, is at the top you see what's called spectrum availability, which is how much channel and power is available after protecting the incumbent users. In other words, what's the maximum power that's available on each channel? That's the top. The next thing you see down below is called channel quality, and the channel quality includes the interference from other CBSDs. Then below that, you will see what's called the channel ranking. And the channel ranking is basically that a graphical representation of the spectrum inquiry. It includes frequency reuse and same frequency parameters. That's what we talked about in the last slide, those parameters where you want them to use the same channel. We include that, plus the channel quality, plus the spectrum availability, all in the same ranking of channels. And you'll see that in the live demo in just a second. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch to the live demo, and we'll go into a test scenario that I put together, a couple of test scenarios, to help you understand how the SAS portal works. So that's our live demo agenda. Let me switch to the SAS portal. Again, watching my video software to make sure that it's handling that well. It looks like it did. We're halfway through the webinar. I'll stop briefly here and just remind you that before I'm going to remove my picture from the screen here during the SAS portal portion of the demonstration so you can see the full screen. But before we do that, a quick reminder, this video repeats. If you want to watch it at any time, you can click on that same link and rewind and watch this video. We also have other videos as well as this one on our YouTube channel, our SAS, Google SAS YouTube channel. I invite you to watch those videos and learn more about our product there. Also, the email address for Google SAS is sas-support@google.com. And we'll provide you with some other support options as part of the live demo. So I'm going to make my picture go away. And let's dive into the SAS portal. So this is the what the SAS portal looks like. Google Maps in the middle, list of sites on the left, some detailed information on the right. And what is sometimes helpful for a lot of people is what's called our list view. So on the far left, we give you some other buttons that are important here. We have map view and list view. If I switch to list view, or I guess table view, as our engineers have called it, you can see all of your devices here. And I'll remind you, this is just a test scenario here. These aren't real devices. But this list of all the things that we've set up here for this demo are now searchable. So you'll notice we've got a search field up here in the upper right. So if I'm looking for Salt Lake City, I just type salt, and it filters the devices by that search term. So if I'm looking for a specific serial number or something like that, I can just type it into the search bar and filter things out. The other thing, and this is, again, somewhat new if you haven't used SAS Portal in a while, we offer you the option of adding to these columns. So this table view can be expanded. When I click on select columns, you'll notice I have a bunch of other things that I can show in that table. One of those is frequency reuse. That's what we're showing today. So you can actually search for frequency reuse and same frequency in the list if you want to. And there it shows up. So you can view all the information at a glance in table view. The other thing, as part of our demo, I'm going to switch back to map view and then show you the Dpa neighborhoods that we saw earlier in the slides. And if I click here on the Overlays tab, which is the lowest button on the left-hand side, it lets me see some overlays. Now, you probably have seen the spectrum availability before. I'll zoom out to the US. Looks like that. How many channels are available on Cbrs around the US? And obviously you got the National Radio Quiet Zone over here in West Virginia and a bunch of other things that you can see visually. That's spectrum availability. The new thing is Dpa neighborhoods. Let's start with Cat A. I'm going to make myself full screen here. You can click the little handles halfway up the screen to close the sidebars. So here's what the US looks like for day one Dpa neighborhood Cat A devices. So if you're deploying a Cat A device in this red area, you're going to be on a day one move list until CPAS happens. Yes, and what that means is it doesn't mean you're going to get suspended. It means that if there is incumbent activity, i.e. the Navy or something like that, you could get suspended. Let me show you Cat B as well. Cat B, because they're higher devices, a little bigger. By the way, I can turn on and off the layer just by clicking the little eyeball there. Cat B goes a little bit further on the East Coast, up to 400 kilometers inland. So this shows you and lets you see very quickly, particularly if you working on a network that's on these border areas, you can see where that Dpa neighborhood is, just so you're aware of that day one operational limitation. And that's Dpa neighborhoods in the SAS portal, something new. Kudos to the engineers who made that happen for us. So let's now dive into points analysis. I'm going to go into a particular area where I've got some devices. Salt Lake City. And if we zoom into Salt Lake City, I'm going to show you a couple of things about the user interface for our SAS portal, just as a high-level overview. If you click anywhere on the map, you get this little orange indicator, and that gives you some information on the right-hand side about this area. Latitude, longitude, the clutter type, and also that spectrum availability. We'll see this again when we look at the Coex feature. So the spectrum availability is showing you what's the maximum power that's available on each channel. And we have some restrictions here in Salt Lake City. So you see that. Oh, and I should mention, this is the day two power. This is what the power you'll get on day two. So again, day one, if you're near the coast, for example, in those Dpa neighborhood areas, it's near any incumbent operators, you might have a day one power limitation. This is the day two power that we show you in the spectrum availability. If I right-click on the map, I can add a site. I'm showing you basic user interface here for the SAS portal, just in case you're new. When you right-click, you add a site. You can also use the Add Site button here at the top. It creates a template CBSD for you, which you can then name, add the information for the FCC ID and serial number, do all of this information by hand. This is called multi-step registration. Once you put all of that in, the minimum information you need is FCC ID and serial number. Once you put that in, you click Save, and it will appear in your SAS portal the next time you log in. If you've put in all the information needed for registration, you can click Ready for CPI here in the lower right-hand corner, and then your CPI can verify that information and do what's called signing the device. at which point the CBSD is ready to be registered and used. Going through this a little quickly, just as an overview of how the SAS works, how the SAS portal works. You can find more information, of course, in our help center, our Cbrs help center online. So and I should also mention there's a video specifically for CPIs in terms of signing devices in our Google SAS YouTube channel. So you might want to check that out too. Now, kind of like those cooking shows, I've already got some devices registered, so let's go take a look at what these devices look like in the portal. When I click on a device, here's my Salt Lake number 9, I don't get much information on the right-hand side, and that's because you can have multiple devices at a single site. So this latitude and longitude just has one device, and you can actually see that here in the upper part of the right-hand column. So if I click on that, I see all the information for the device. Here I've got two CBSDs on the same tower, so I can click on both of them here to view the information in about each of those devices. And I mentioned we show you grant history, we show you a bunch of information. If time allows, I'll get into troubleshooting, but there's a separate video that gets into that on our YouTube channel, so I won't necessarily take up the time to do that here. But looking at this Salt Lake City CBSD here, if I toggle the little caret, I should explain, I clicked on the status tab, and then I clicked this little caret here, which lets me see the information about this particular grant. It shows me the transmit expire time, the EIRP, channel type, all that information. And remember, these grants are only, I think, maximum 4 minutes long. So if you have been using the SAS portal for a while, you might notice that this transmit expiration is out of date. For example, right now, as we're live, it's 10:42. This says the transmission expired 10:32. My goodness, what's that? Well, all I have to do is click this little round arrow here. Click the refresh arrow. Once I do that, it updates the information. And here I can see that this device is heart beating just fine. It's able to transmit now until 10:46. So it just got a new expiration time. So this device is working well, and I can see all of that here in the status tab of the SAS portal. Now let's get into the new stuff. Pardon me for taking sips of water here as I'm talking. Let's get into the new stuff. This is the Coex tab. And the Coex tab is going to show us the spectrum availability, the channel quality, and the channel ranking. Remember that graphic that was missing from my slides earlier? Here's what you would have seen, right? The top, spectrum availability, maximum power on day 2. We've got no limitations here in Salt Lake. Channel quality, no other operators nearby. Everything's 100. And then below it, the channel ranking. What is the ranking of the best channels? So this CBSD's looking hunky-dory, which is not great for our demos. So let me show you some scenarios that we put together that show you a little bit more information about how Coex can be useful to you. I'm going to go to Demopolis, Alabama, just by clicking here in the little search field. If you didn't notice, I get to that via this magnifying glass button up here. That's how you get this search field. If you're following along, if you are logged into the SAS portal as you watch this. So here in this little town, I've put up a 4-sector tower by the public square. So I've got 4 90-degree sectors, north, south, east, west. And if I click on one of these sectors, I can see the information just like I did in Salt Lake City. But when I click on the Coex tab, I'm going to see some interesting stuff. Here at the top of the Coex tab, you'll notice I've got a frequency reuse value put in. Now you can name your frequency reuse anything you want. I called this north frequency. You can call it, yellow frequency, whatever you want. But when you add that frequency reuse into your device configuration, that has an impact on this Coex tab. Let me show you where that happens, by the way. So I'm just going to click on the, showing you that there are 4 sectors. So in the config tab, if I scroll down below, you can see it says it has both same frequency and frequency reuse. Now I can't change it here. That's because the device is locked. It might also be because I'm not an admin. If you're viewing this and you're not an admin of your network, you won't be able to change any of these values. Or I'm sorry, if you're not an editor. You can be an editor and not an admin, right? So if you're just a viewer of the, if you're just have viewer privileges, you won't be able to change this. But if you do see this lock here at the top of the right-hand column, you click the lock at the top of the right-hand column, that unlocks the configurations and lets you put something in here. And you can put more than one frequency reuse group in here too, by the way. In this case, I just typed in north frequency, and then I relocked the device. So what that means is, if I look at the Coex tab, I can see my grant. Here's my active grant on channels 3 and 4. Down here, I can see this is the channel that I should mention. I've shared frequency. This north frequency is shared with the south-facing sector as well. So I'm doing frequency reuse on the north and south-facing sectors, as well as the east and west-facing sectors. The east and west-facing sectors are using channel 6 and 7. So if I'm looking at the north sector, I can see that channel 6 and 7 are not available. That makes sense because it's being used by the other two sectors. But the frequency that I'm on, 3570 to 3590, is showing as totally clear because I'm accepting the interference from this guy down here on the south side. And the end result is that these two devices have the same Coex tab. And the left and right devices, the east and west devices rather, they're sharing the west frequency group. And here I see that their Coex tab is showing the other two sectors. So I've got a pair of frequency reuse groups programmed in, and again I did that at the bottom of the config settings, and to change something you have to unlock the device. Once you've put that in, it impacts the Coex tab and then gives you the results that you expect. If there were any other devices here in Demopolis, I would see them, their impact here in the channel quality. Speaking of that, let's go to a little bit more of a complicated scenario and look at how Coex works with same frequency groups. And this is in Falls City, Texas. So here I've got a fixed wireless deployment happening. And I've got 2 CBSDs pointing at my tower. In this case, I want these CBSDs to be, these CPEs rather, to be using the same exact frequency as the sector that's pointing at them. And I do that using the same frequency group. So first, looking at the tower here, I've got Falls City 27 and 28. 28, if I look at the status tab, has grants on channels 10 and 11. The one that's facing the other direction has 6 and 7. So I want this CPE here to use channels 10 and 11. And I do that using the same frequency group. If I click on the CBSD, at the bottom you notice I've told it to use frequency D. So I've put frequency D in the same frequency group here, and on this sector it's also frequency D. So because the same frequency group has been entered as frequency D on both of these devices, that's going to ensure that the Coex tab, the channel ranking, shows those channels at the top. If you don't believe me, let's take a look. Click on the device, and then click on the Codex tab. It's going to quickly do some server-side calculations of the current spectrum availability, channel quality, and ranking. It shows you, it says it may take up to 3 minutes. Maybe I'm lucky, but it hasn't taken that long for me. We do offer some information about what's shown. If you mouse over this little question mark, it shows you a graphical interface of that spectrum availability too, by the way. What we're going to see here is that even though there's interference on these channels, this CPE is going to have its frequency D channels, which I think is, let's double check here what those channels are. Yep, 3640 to 3660. It's going to have those channels at the top of its channel ranking. And since this is a live demo, it's going to take longer than I thought. There we go. Sorry about the delay there. But here you can actually see what's happening, okay? Here are channels 5 and 6. That's the sector facing the other direction. So I'm getting some interference from these guys over here. That's expected. But my channel ranking puts channels 10 and 11 at the top. And that's because I've told the coexistence to use the same frequency D, as this sector right here. So even though there's other stuff going on, and we've even got some power restrictions here in the spectrum availability, when I click on the Falls City CPE, Coex, I can see channels 10 and 11 are appropriately being put at the top of the rankings. That's going to mirror exactly what comes back in the spectrum inquiry. So that's how you assign a CPE to use the same frequency as a CBSD. On this side, we're going to get the same information here in the Coex tab. I'm using frequency F in the same frequency group, and that's going to match this CBSD, which is facing the northwest. Again, you configure that using the config tab, unlock the device if necessary, and go down and you put the same frequency group in here. And again, you can have more than one if you want more than one channel to appear at the top. So let's go back and see if that Coex has refreshed here. And there it is. I can see the interference from that other sector, from the one we just looked at, but on this particular 27 pair, channels 6 and 7 are at the top of my channel ranking. Now, that's for CPEs. I've got a few minutes left. If you are just putting a new device in the SAS portal, you can still leverage the power of Coex. So I've showed you what happens for CPEs and towers where they're already deployed. But let's say I want to know or I want some guidance in terms of, I want to put another CBSD over here. I'm going to build another tower. And I want to see what the Coex looks like for this particular device. I plop the device down, which, as I showed you earlier, you can right-click or use the Add Site button. I configure the device, and you'll notice I already have a Coex tab here. Even though the device hasn't registered, doesn't have any grants, I still get a Coex tab in the SAS portal. And that's really useful, because it's going to show me, it's going to do the little bit of behind-the-scenes calculation, and then it's going to respond with the spectrum availability, the channel quality and the channel ranking for this new device. Now, I have to mention as a side note, once the device actually registers and gets a grant, the Coex has to be updated again. So what you're seeing now is for a new device. Once the device actually registers and gets a grant, it has to recalculate that Coex. And again, that can take, as I showed you in the slides a little earlier, that can take up to 4 hours for a new device. Usually it's faster. So, but even before the device is registered, if you plop a new CBSD down, you click on the Codex tab, we've got that same information here. The top is spectrum availability. Again, I'm being repetitive here just to try to make sure you understand this is the maximum day 2 power that this particular CBSD can use. Below that, the channel quality. Given the other devices nearby, either your devices, another Google SAS customer devices, or devices on some other SAS, what is the channel quality on each of the channels? And here we can actually see the impact of the channels 5 and 6 coming from these guys here. So we know that's where this interference is coming from. But if there was impact on any of these other channels, you might not see it on your in your network. It might be from somebody else. But that's going to show here in the channel quality. And then down below, the channel ranking. In this case, we've got some sequential channels that are available if you want to use multiple channels. And the top channels where there's low quality are listed at the bottom. In this case, channels 5 and 6 are going to be, or sorry, 6 and 7. Oh, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 and 7 are all the way at the bottom there. So the channel ranking matches what you're seeing here in the channel quality. And that's for any new CBSD that you put into the SAS portal. So you can use the SAS portal to identify, even if you're just going to hand code, manually put in the frequency for this new device, I now can see graphically what are the best channels to use for this device if I want to avoid interference with anyone else. So hopefully that's helpful to you. We've given you an overview of the new features in SAS Portal. We've shown you the Dpa networks, Dpa neighborhoods rather. Also the Coex tab. I've shown you some basic information about how the SAS works and some basic user interface in terms of using our Google SAS portal. Again, there's lots more information in our Google SAS YouTube channel about how all of this works, plus our documentation. Let me quickly show you how that works. I did show you, tell you I'd show you tech support. I've got 2 minutes left. If you click the little question mark here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you have access to all that help documentation right in the SAS portal. If you want to contact us by telephone, click this little contact us button here. When you do that, it lets you put in what you need help with. And then when you click next step, it lets you choose whether you want to fill out an email or get a call. If you click the get a call button, Google SAS will call you. And we can get you started with that troubleshooting. And that's available now 24/7. That's brand new. So feel free to use that. And of course, I've got my picture up there on the screen, so you didn't see the where that question mark is. This is the question mark here. This is where the feedback is. So again, click this little question mark if you want phone support. Click the contact us button, put something in here, and then you can click the get a call button. The other thing I want to reiterate is, as I mentioned earlier, we do have the one-on-one sessions with our consultants available. These are called deployment acceleration sessions. And they are 3 one-on-one sessions with our consultants to help you get a frequency plan of your network, as well as deploy and manage your CBSDs. That is available at a link that we're going to post in the chat and in the comments to this video. Encourage you to sign up for that or use our phone support if you have questions about your SAS operations. We're here for you. We want to help you get through this new and exciting world of CBRS that we're all diving into together. We hope it works well for you. Thank you so much for being a Google SAS customer and for joining me and watching this entire webinar. We do more of these in the future. Check your monthly newsletter for upcoming topics, or subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to the Google SAS YouTube channel. Click that red subscribe button, and you'll be notified of new videos as they are posted. Thanks again for joining us, and we wish you a very safe and pleasant rest of your day or week. Take care.